Hello. Last week I created this dungeon, which I intended to be run in Boothill, but I guess other systems would work as well. And I also ran this dungeon for players from the OSR Discord that were interested to run it. And in this video, I'm aiming to do three things. I want to explain how I created this dungeon, how I stocked it with the stuff that's inside. Also, I'm going to go through the dungeon and explain the individual rooms. And lastly, I'm going to go over a little how the session went, what I liked about it, and know that I have actually experienced playing this or running this dungeon. I myself run D&D ideally weekly, which works most of the time, but I'm very inexperienced in running dungeons or creating dungeons, because that's usually not how I like to run my games. Like, very dungeon heavy. There's definitely like under 10 sessions or dungeons I created and ran in the 8 years I'm playing D&D. But yeah, last week I had the idea to run Boothill in the dungeon, and I got kind of excited and made it a little larger than I originally wanted to. This is the whole dungeon. Probably one more important thing up front for those that are interested in the dungeon itself and not just the process. I intend to add the individual pages, scan pages from the dungeon into the description of this video, so people can get the dungeon and the keys for the dungeon. My key is mostly in German. I have a few English words in there. I hope the dungeon is still of use for those that want to use it, but I'm not going to translate it. For the beginning, in terms of how I like the painting part of this dungeon, that's the drawing part, that's where I begin. I just started and draw what looked funny or interesting to me. There wasn't too much thought in that. And I was I believe it's somewhat visible here, limited by, I draw on denorm 5 pages, so as you can see, they are kind of limited, and that to some degree informed how I drew this dungeon. The idea was for this to be some kind of mine complex, and I wanted it to be quite convoluted. The feeling I was going for was so that if players were going into this mine, they are most likely going to get lost, and this being kind of a death trap, and at least in terms of from the player character's perspective, the best possible outcome is probably to leave as soon as possible, although players might feel it is interesting or enjoyable to suffer through this dungeon and experience their characters' deadly end. But that's kind of a player preference. But at least from the idea was that for the player characters, it would be best to get out of here as soon as they realized they were going to their doom. I believe that's most of the tough stuff in terms of drawing it. I can't really compare it to much other stuff because I very, very rarely create dungeons or run them. All my stuff is created myself, or almost all my stuff, so I also have no experience with pre-made dungeons. I guess I'm going over to how I stocked this dungeon. Let's see. I had this bullet list with stuff I believe that should be in this dungeon. For one, as I said, I decided there would be this would be a mine, and I decided it would be a silver mine. So, or at least I wanted it to be an abandoned silver mine. So I had the idea there should be a hidden silver cache that could be found in this dungeon. I wanted there to be like information inside the dungeon that would explain what is inside and what got this dungeon to be closed. So I wanted there to be old mine documents. The same with like notes from the people that previously worked here in this mine. So, for example, diaries. Then I wanted there to be different groups of faction in this dungeon, and yeah, for them had to have like camps inside. So like new people that we are like looking for to like restart the mine and look for silver. Then I wanted to be a classic criminal gang to use the dungeon as a hideout to like do crime outside and then get inside to support the security. And lastly, I wanted to have a group of survivors inside that survived the original disaster and now are living in this mine for over a decade. And with the groups came my idea for having there to be abandoned camps. Then I believe the last like semi-group would be my idea that inside at least the upper levels of this dungeon there would be children playing and maybe having like tests of courage. So there would be like child's paintings up here that could also hint at the monsters that are further down. And for the monsters, that would be like mutated humans. So I had like as ideas for the dungeon that there should be the possibility of finding dead monsters, of finding half mutated people, and also finding the dead bodies of people like ripped apart by the monsters. I believe that should be all of them. We can go quickly to the individual dungeon, or like the painting on the dungeon, because I decided that I wanted this dungeon to have like several degrees of like depth, and therefore in the like this gray, what's this like the pencil parts in this dungeon are like the heights next to it, and I grouped the heights into like 3 groups. Oh, this is not correct. This is like the mechanism on which I decided like to roll if it goes higher or deeper. But I guess it's not here. But I grouped the heights into 3 different categories. So I could like stock the dungeon appropriate to how deep they are inside. As I said, I wanted to have like children's paintings on the walls only on the upper levels, and for example the big silver cache that's hidden there shouldn't be like immediately at the entrance, so it's only possible to appear in the deeper levels. And I basically went room to room and rolled for what's inside. On a few occasions I decided like it would fit better if instead of like a completely randomly rolled a result, I came up with like stuff that better fits. For example, like the main entrance. I obviously put some stuff in there to get like the general feel for the mine. I wanted there to be like the former silver veins beaten out of the stone and the holes left behind. That were like important things for me to get like the general idea of the mine across and what is inside. Let me think about. And then one last thing I did in terms of stocking the dungeon was, in addition to like the previous what's it called? Like these tables I just explained in terms of like what can be found in these individual dungeon rooms, I also wrote for every room whether or not there would be is still a silver vein running, which is still full. I did not do this for the beginning part because that was completely exploited by the previous mining operation. That's it. And I believe one more thing I should mention is that, as you can see, this is a natural cave, which the idea is the previous mining operation took over and then dug further into this hill. And because like mine shafts just beaten into the stone are like quite straightforward, so I never mapped them. But to have like a better overview of like how the 4 individual maps fit together and where one has to imagine the mine shafts, I painted them on here. And I also rolled stuff for them. But yeah, that's another note. That should be everything in terms of how I stock this dungeon. I believe, give me 1 second. Yeah, it might also be time now to go over, besides the pre-stocking of this dungeon, I was using the tension pool that I was introduced to by Angry GM, where like depending on the player's action, there's a higher chance of encountering monsters and or any other kind of encounter, and that was the mechanism I used to determine whether or not there was an encounter at all in the rooms. And once there was an encounter, I created once again 3 encounter tables depending on how deep into the dungeon the players went, or like where they were currently, to determine what exactly they encountered. For example, like kids roaming around on the upper levels, and the deeper they go, the higher the chance of encountering proper monsters. Now to the dungeon itself. Players. Maybe one more thing which I believe I did not mention when I went over how I like constructed this dungeon. My idea was like that this should definitely be played in like 1-shot or 2-shot, like definitely like a very limited scenario and not like a campaign. So I had like 3 starting motivations in mind, and I wanted the group to choose one of the motivations, and therefore they also got their quest, which that sent them to this dungeon. And I believe my wording for the motivations were they had to decide whether or not the group wanted to go into the dungeon out of greed, out of love, or out of wish to restore law and order. The out of greed would put the players into the position of being prospectors and like exploring this mine, looking whether or not they could. It would be economical to reopen this mine and start a new operation here. The out of love scenario would have the players looking for a child that's in this dungeon and that is supposed to be brought back to the to their family. And the last out of a wish to restore law and order had the players with the mission from the sheriff to find one of the local gangs here, the Dirty Dozen, and get rid of them. The players decided to choose the third option, so they did not know about the other 2 options, so they did not know that there are people trying to explore this dungeon out of other reasons, and this will also be quite important in how this dungeon played out 2 days ago, I believe. Yeah, so let me begin. This is the starting room. Maybe I can also like draw in terms of coloring the places where the players went themselves. So the players obviously went through the main entrance, went through the main entrance. Before that, they explored a little bit like the perimeter of the mining camp, and had some thoughts about like further exploring the area, looking for additional entrances besides this one. But they eventually decided to enter this room. They were already quite, maybe not paranoid, but definitely like very aware, and looking for a possible ambush by this gang they were supposed to get rid of. So yeah, they took quite a few precautions when they went in here, and then they got into this room. They couldn't see everything, so the player themselves could only see, like, I believe roughly this far, and they decided to go to the right first, so room D. This room I had like starkly with a stark incline from the entrance, and then the further to the right one gets, the higher it is. And on the like very, very close to the end of the room, there was an opening, or is an opening, in the ceiling where like daylight shines in, and this daylight is reveals to the players that there are like chalk paintings or drawings from most likely children, that depict like both stick people and also like monsters drawn by children. Whether or not like the players believe this to like just be like children's painting or actual monsters could be up to the players. This is also the point when I had already rolled an encounter for the players, and I rolled it to be a prospector for that was exploring this mine. And yeah, this person I decided would have like be like no bad intentions, and just like heard the players like moving around and doing stuff. So when they came up from behind, they were just like basically looking to say like the players hello and see who's there, and the players assumed that this might be one of the gang members, so they set up an ambush for the prospector, and then they questioned him and forced him to move with them for some time. We spent quite some time here with the players being unsure whether or not this prospector was like playing a very, very elaborate scheme to get them into a trap, or if they were just like a normal person and with like no bad intentions toward them. That was definitely like some time they spent here. During the course of the conversation the players had with the prospector, I decided that this prospector had explored most of like the first part of the mine by himself already, and the players wanted the prospector to lead them through the parts he had not explored yet. So they beelined behind the prospector to the mine shafts and went in there. At this point, there should be a slight mismatch between my notes and how I ran this, because I believe I had missed the notes for like the what was it called, for the shafts, for these mine shafts, and I had still in my mind that there was definitely like a dead body hidden, which I believe, according to my notes, should be in room E. But yeah, I just decided to like put the dead body at the end of one of these mine shafts that was detected, and that was the first encounter. The players, first of all, the prospector and then the players detected the dead body. The prospector was shocked, and this was probably the point where the players started to like believe that the prospector was like actually just a normal person that was like exploring this place and scared finding this dead body. I don't know if I just remember correctly or if I managed to find my notes again, but like there was also like a scheduled or like a dead body according to the notes. So in one of the other shafts, they found a dead body that was a lot older, that was already like a skeleton that had hanged themselves in these mines. That was the exploration the players did with the prospector. And the prospector showed them to like this room on the next map. And the prospector themselves said they did not want to break this door, which was barricaded or is barricaded from the inside, and left the players. The players decided not to breach this door as well and instead check for other entrances into this mine. So I'm quickly going over the other rooms the players did not check out too explicitly. This room B, which I believe the previous players maybe peeked inside shortly, but they definitely like didn't give it a proper look. And this is, and to some degree, like the opposite of like room D. Instead of like it having a sharp incline, it sharply declines. And my idea was that at the very end, the lowest point, there would be a child that is hiding as a test of courage. And just like in room D, there were paintings on the wall made by the children. But there was no interaction between the players and this room. The room C is the former storage room, so there's a bunch of like rotten wood and shelves, and there are probably also and maybe some loot. I don't think I rolled some, but maybe if the players had explored it, I would have just like rolled up some random items on the go, because like that makes sense in a storage room. Going on to room 4, I have to slightly correct myself, because after talking to the prospector and being at the blockaded room, they decided to go back. They went into this room, where there is like some trash still lying around and old campfire, and the campfire led them to further like explore the walls of this room, which to them detected or let them detect the hole in the ground. They tried to dug through the hole, but they wanted to be like secured by their rope, and the tunnel they found was like longer than the rope they had, so they had their tunnel crawler person like crawl back, and instead they set fire inside this tunnel and decided to go outside and check where the smoke rises from the ground to find the tunnel. And now we're kind of leaving this map a little bit, because I had not mapped like the outside world. I just like narrated the players to like find the hole. It's not that far away anyway, and while not directly connected very close to this axis, I had like this entry. Early on when like drawing this map, I don't even know quite why, like for whatever reason put like these thicker black walls in there, and you can also see that later on I completely stopped this practice. So I decided to basically, during the process of like creating the dungeon, to, depending on like what is the height difference between the two sides. So for example, in this example we have like height -4, height -3, then it would be like a barrier between the two areas where the players either have to like climb above or climb down. And in cases where there's the same height, it would be the exit out of the dungeon. And by therefore this was an entry into the dungeon, which the players managed to get into after finding the exit this led to. That led to. So this is where the players entered again. They explored a little bit. First into this room. We once again have a slight mismatch between my notes and how you run it, because I confused like this room I with the notes for room J. So the content of the rooms are like switched up in the notes for this dungeon, but as the players decided to explore room J next, it didn't end up mattering very much. In room I, the players detected where do we have it? For the first time, body of a half mutated dead person. They wondered for a little how they died, whether it was like an infection, a snake bite. I don't think they quite had an idea yet that this was some sort of monster, and it was like fine with that. It was intended that there should be like it shouldn't be like entirely clear what these half-infected people are. The people left the body here. They thought about, like, they wanted to take this body and the other body they found previously and get them out of the mine to inform, to like give to the sheriff and have some like dead bodies to show for. And then they went to the opposite side. And here they found a bunch of documents. And I had like written down like a chest full of medical records. And I decided, it probably would make sense to put these records like into some place. So I decided like alongside this wall here would be like a small shed where a doctor used to make like medical experiments on these half mutated people. So I put the stuff in there, a bunch of medical supplies also, and the documents. Which, because like all players ended up illiterate, none of them could read. They like saw the images, like, or the drawings in the documents of like these swollen body parts, but they couldn't quite understand what was inside. This was also the second time that an encounter roll came up as an encounter. This time I wrote up a survivor who obviously warned the players that they like should leave this place. The players were once again like torn between like leaving this place and believing that it was once again a ruse by the gang to like either get them into a trap or make them believe that like if the gang's inside it would truly be dead. And in the end they decided that the curse and all the terrible things that the survivor was talking about was true. So they left the mine through the hole they came from, put dynamite in there and exploded the hole. And then they also at least tried to collapse the main entrance, which did not work in the end. That was how the session itself went. Afterwards, we just like inserted like a gunfight because not a single shot had been fired.